Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Light Artists Podcast. Today I get to sit down with Ebuka. He's a Nigerian-based photographer who specializes in fashion and portraits. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today, another treat. I get to chat with Ebuka. He's a photographer, like I mentioned in that intro there. He's based out of Nigeria and has a body of work that is amazing, ridiculous in a good way, right? So we're going to talk about his work, his sort of experience diving into the world of NFTs, photography, gear, all that stuff. Ebuka, welcome to the podcast, man. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. It's going really well, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity, really, to have this interview.
Oh, the opportunity's all mine, my friend. I get to chat with somebody who's doing this level of work and enjoying it. So, this is all about you. This is your show. Let's dive in. Let's start just with a little bit of background on your history as an artist and what brought you to this. Normally I have conversations with photographers from all over the world, including around Africa. This is the first time I think I've had a conversation with someone who's strictly a fashion and portrait photographer out of Nigeria. So what was your motivations to sort of go into this genre and this direction of photography? How'd you get started?
Well, that's a specific question, and I think I have the right answer to it. So I started out loving nature and loving basically what the environment has to give, but I moved sort of into portraits because of the market. I'm based in Nigeria, and then the only thing that was appreciated at that time was what you could give other people, which is photos of themselves. So I started down the path of being a portrait photographer, and then I started putting my love for nature and the environment into my photos, into my portrait photos, and just trying to infuse different components into that photo. And I think that was when I sort of just realized that clothing could be a great addition to making the subject pop, and that's when fashion photography came in, and I've just been identifying as that and also trying to create things that motivate in that particular genre.
Yeah, that's great. I love that genre as well. They're just sort of fashion and portraiture and those sorts of things. But I always admire real, I'll call them real, fashion photographers, because when you call someone a fashion photographer, the emphasis is on fashion, obviously, right? So it's all about the clothing that they're wearing and showing that literally and figuratively in the best light possible, and that's the gig. Show the clothing, show this fabulous person wearing this clothing in this amazing location, right? And that the challenges for shooting and displaying clothing. I want to talk about that a little bit. How do you, when you take on a job that's fashion related, how does the importance or the individual personalities of a piece of clothing, how does that get communicated to you? Do they say, hey, Ebuka, make sure you show this pattern, or make sure that you're able to show that this piece of fabric flows in the wind, and then the job is on you to capture that? What kind of specifics go along with an assignment that you're shooting that's fashion related?
Well, when shooting fashion related, photos specifically, I look out for the other things in the photo. That is, the things that make the person and the clothing pop out. So sort of the environment. I try to see how the environment can be related to that particular outfit and what message it would send. For instance, a man wearing a suit in the marketplace, it would strike up an emotion, a conflicted emotion, whereby someone is like, okay, what's a guy with a suit finding in the market? And it could also strike up one that states he is very confident in every environment as a businessman, that he can find himself in the most basic part of business, that is the marketplace, and he could confidently walk around there. And just things like that go through my head, and I'm like, okay, I try to create an image that lets the viewers select what they want to see, select what particular emotion they get from that photo. So all of these components add up in my fashion photography, whereby I'm looking at how the environment also plays a very important role in showcasing a particular pattern or showcasing a particular outfit in general.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a responsibility, right? Because it really the success of the work, whether if it's portraiture, right? Your job is to satisfy that person that you're taking the portrait of, or the client, but specifically that person. The idea is to capture that person's personality or something that's pertaining to that person. In clothing, it's that person is basically an accessory to the clothing, right? And you have to make sure that the clothing is the subject and the person is secondary. What is your process for breaking down those walls? So you say it's a portrait or a fashion shoot. What's your process for, like, do you take 5 or 10 minutes before the shoot to kind of sit down and get to know the model? Or is it, they just come in and you show up on the shoot with the camera and do the shoot like Andy Leibovitz and then get out of there? Like, what's your process day of?
Oh, that's interesting, because I made a whole class on Skillshare about like this particular thing when shooting portrait and fashion photographs. So I get to know my models beforehand. That is maybe a day or a week before the shoot. I either have coffee with them or lunch. And this whole thing just gets me to know the type of person they are, gets me to know their limits, the postures they wouldn't feel comfortable doing, or how athletic they are, and I know if I need them to jump off something, or just they feel comfortable around me because of that like particular activity, which is getting to know them. And from there, on the shoot day, I just have a very stress-free session, which is I'm shooting a friend now. I'm shooting someone who I understand, and we shouldn't feel uncomfortable at any point in time. So I think that helps the major part of shooting people, because I get to just do my thing. I get to just not really plan or put in so much effort into forcing a particular mood or feeling. I just do my thing and we just have fun because we now understand each other. And yeah, I think that's the basic or the most important part of shooting someone in my process.
I agree. Yeah, like so building a relationship and breaking down the wall between you and the subject, right? So that when you get actually day of, it's not all weird and who is this person and am I going to say the wrong thing or whatever. So you're more, it's more of you taking a photograph of a friend. Like beforehand, before those days before the actual shoot, before you show up at the agreed upon location, are you sharing like a Pinterest board or any sort of shot ideas so that you're collaborating and you're literally on the same page?
Well, yeah, this happens like sometimes. I'm being very honest. I don't get to share my mood boards all the time, especially with friends and people who understand me, because I get most of my inspiration when I'm on set. So there are a lot of things that wouldn't go. I'm just going to share a mood board just to get your mind off the worries of not having a plan. That's basically one of the major things I do. But whenever it's a serious project or a client shoot, yeah, I create a mood board. We walk by it. We try to make the outfits match. We try to get the location that we really need for the shoot. I send in postures and like positions that I would demand of them to get into. That is like just maybe athletic postures or weird postures or abstract kind of postures. So I send this in so that they have an idea, they can practice it on their own, and then on the shoot day they can easily just get into that position without having to ask, oh, okay, is this how it is, or that. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So that's you're killing all those birds with one stone, right? So with the preparation, even low key preparation with the coffee and all that, so that when you both arrive on set or at the shoot location, you can just knock it out, with less friction and less, sort of overhead of all that other stuff. When you're on location, what does that look like? Is there just you and the model, with a bunch of clothes, or is it the full on thing where you've got you, the model, a stylist, hair and makeup, and the client is there and your assistants, all that? Like, how do you prefer to work?
Well, right from when I started photography, I was this kind of photographer that just liked going to a scene with my model, just me and my model. And then when I got like extra equipment like the diffuser and stuff needing to hold, I just go with like an assistant, and it just sort of makes my model comfortable knowing that there's no crowd rather, just like behind them or in front of them just watching, so they feel comfortable, they laugh, I laugh off with them, like laugh off silly poses, um just basically that. So I think I've moved into that kind of space where I try to limit as many people on set as possible, just to have that synchronization and have that clarity with the environment and the model. Yeah.
That makes sense. What a great process. And have you found that you maintain connections and relationships, like friendly relationships with your models after the shoot? Since you're building so much time getting to know them before the shoot, does it just end after the shoot is over, or do you still maintain?
Yeah, I think it's actually good because I have made friends of models, and there's the model that I started out with when I was shooting with an iPod, and he stuck by me till now, basically till now. Actually, he stuck by me till now, and he was even one of the models in one of the collections that actually did like really well on OpenSea. But yeah, I grow friendships with these models because of how like they feel around me and how they feel during the process, and I end up shooting with them most of the time and just move into a really good relationship with them.
Now, are the models that you're shooting, are they mostly, or the assignments, are they like, how do those come to you? The commercial assignments, how do they come to you? And then the models for, say, a self project, where are you sourcing the models from? Is it just a group of friends, or do you go through more traditional processes?
Well, because of the fact that I've made friends with models I've worked with on personal projects, I can easily call them on to professional projects, that is client projects, because I'm like, oh yeah, I know someone, I know a really good friend who is a model, and then I can reach out and they're comfortable enough to hop on that project with me. So they're like friends that have grown into, like, I sourced them out at first, and then from sourcing them out, they became friends, and then they work with me on almost everything I do.
Okay, you said, Ebuka, you said something that I can't let go by. You let it fly by that you started shooting on an iPod. Did I hear that right? You like explain yourself. Like, how did that go? Which is great. I mean, because the phones are ridiculously amazing these days. There's nothing wrong with shooting on a phone, right? I mean, they're better than, I would argue that a phone today is way better than, a SLR 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So, what brought you to the phone or to using an iPod as your main camera? Was it just expense, or I just want to try this out first before I commit? Like, what was your path there?
Okay, so I went to a school that didn't allow phones, a university that didn't allow phones. And yeah, it's a crazy rule, but that's another talk for another day. But yeah, they didn't allow phones, and I didn't really have the funds to get a camera. And it was just this passion, this thing I wanted to just try out, photography. I just wanted to capture moments. And they allowed iPods, apparently, the sixth generation iPods with cameras and all of that. And many of the students had the iPods because that was the only thing or gadget they could really use around the environment. So I found myself just getting my friend's iPod and just shooting. He was a model, and I just shoot him randomly. I edit it with Lightroom Mobile, and sometimes send it to my laptop. Yeah, I think that particular whole, like, the process and the scenario just forced my hand into learning post processing, which is like editing really well, trying to make that image that I shot on a shitty gear to stand out when being compared to images that were shot on a professional gear. So yeah, that's basically it for me.
You know that's interesting because you were forced into doing it because of whatever restrictions the school had. But I mean, you know, right? Today there's this movement towards less is more, and as the capabilities of these phones increase with cinematic mode and portrait mode and, you know, all the things, real photographers are now looking at the phone devices as another viable way to capture images. Do you foresee a day when you might just go full circle and say, you know what, Canon is great, but I'm gonna start leaning on the phone a little bit more? What do you think?
Yeah, I like the flexibility of mobile devices. You can pop out your phone in like somewhere that you would feel scared bringing out a camera,
Yeah.
and you can easily get like really discrete shots. You can get shots of people. It's just easy to pop out your phone anywhere and just like walk with it. But I feel like, yeah, phones are great, but I'm one of those photographers that still believe no matter the technology, the cameras will also get an edge over
I agree.
phones.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. But yeah, I agree both ways because I think we, or maybe it's just creatives or humans in general, tend to be very binary, right? It's got to be either this way or that way. It's either you're shooting with a phone or you're shooting with a mirrorless camera, or you're shooting with mirrorless or DSLR, or you're shooting with Nikon or Canon. And the reality is it's all about your work as an artist and what's your path of least resistance to getting there. Who cares what you use to get there, especially these days? It's like, you know, use whatever you want to use to create your brand of art. You know, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about just sort of the distribution of art, or your art, and particularly specifically as applied to NFTs and crypto and sort of that world that I know you're playing in. Obviously, you're on the Light Artists podcast, and you're one of the light artists. So how, just without me leading the witness or anything, tell me how it's going for you in the NFT space compared to, say, 6 months ago. Are you happy with the direction that things are going? Are you still excited and bullish about it? Or are you like, I don't know about this, you know, it was a good experiment, but I'm going to go in this direction? How do you feel? Like, truthfully, how do you feel about the NFT space today?
I like that you added the part truthfully, because I'm going to be truthful about it.
Good. Don't you hate it when people like, let me be honest, right? As if everything you said before wasn't honest. Now, let me be honest.
Well, the thing is, it's been a, permit my words, shitty environment recently for me. It's like it's been a shitty experience at this moment. But 6 months ago, it was amazing. It was like in the past, it was amazing because I felt motivated. I saw like creatives get what they deserve. I saw people being paid for their hard work. And coming from like this part of the world, Nigeria in particular, many creatives are benefiting finally from their art, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. But there's just a lot happening, and I have my opinions, people have their opinions, and it's not just been the environment for me. I feel like I have so much dope work, and I need to sort of, will I say, I'll use the word beg for attention, or try to just forcefully make connections, forcefully try to get friends. It's not just like a seamless process anymore. It's just more of everyone is, yeah, that's, I don't know. I think from my little explanation, there's just a lot going on for me. But yeah, it's not been exactly like the best recently for me, but I'm still bullish on the experience, and I know that it will pay off someday, and the connections, the relationships, the community will get better eventually.
Yeah, it's still early days, right? Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the candidness, because I'm by no means, if anybody's listened to this podcast before, I don't consider myself, I don't have an MBA in NFT, right? I'm learning just like everyone else, and it's interesting, really, to kind of see the ups and downs and the different perspectives on how people are approaching or their experiences in the NFT space. And I'm really one of the reasons I asked that question is because I was curious about how, from being in Nigeria, like, what does it look like? Like, what is the NFT space? Because I'm in Silicon Valley here. Not that the internet cares, right? But I'm in Silicon Valley, so I'm around people that are talking about NFTs, and they're bullish, and they're buying this and they're buying that, and they're collectors or whatever. But when you have a photographer that is not in Silicon Valley, not in, sort of living and breathing this stuff all the time, not in those communities yet, right, of people that are nurturing back and forth. What does that look like? What does the momentum of getting started in the space look like? And is it demoralizing in a way, like, should I be spending my time doing this right now, or should I sit on the sidelines? So it's refreshing to hear you say, yeah, you're still bullish about it, but I guess I'd use the phrase cautiously optimistic about where things might go. So what's next, like, in the space? Like, you mentioned, getting momentum and sort of getting, I guess that's the best word for it, the forward momentum in the space. What are you doing to get that forward momentum? Is it, are you promoting, or is it more of just kind of hanging out in different discords? Like, what's your process there?
Okay, I quit promoting some time back because it felt like a desperate move, because it's just like one artist, and then it's just like the artist is in a hallway shouting, please buy my work, and there are people just walking by, please buy more, and then you start looking very desperate, and it gets to you, it demoralizes you, because you're putting in effort, and then no one sees it, and you just feel, you attach meaning, you attach like the worth of your work to that particular thing. Meanwhile, it's not meant to be so. So I feel like I'm going to take out time to work on myself outside Web3, just work on myself and get back that passion, because there was a passion before Web3, and I hate that Web3 or lack of sales would interrupt that joy that like my passion brings. So I want to focus more on that. I just want to like build myself outside Web3 before entering back into Web3 with a clearer mind and self-worth, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way, like a cleansing moment, right? Let me take a step back, take a deep breath, look at everything, and then re-engage after you kind of assess whether even if you want to re-engage on Web3 or not. I think it makes sense to take just a breather and take a step back from it. Yeah, that's really helpful. I think a lot of people will want to hear that, right? Because we hear a lot of positivity, and there's nothing wrong with the positivity that's surrounding the NFT space. It's exciting, it's new, there's a lot of potential. The blockchain has the potential to change a lot of ways, not just on the crypto side, but a lot of things that we're doing. So there's a lot of excitement in that, but that's why I preface the whole idea of, are you, let's be honest about it, right? And I preface the whole thing with, or that piece of it with, I want to get the real deal. Like, from your perspective, sitting in Nigeria, are you happy? This is what I want to hear, right? This is what people need to hear. The counterbalance to the positivity that we hear around the NFT space all the time. Not that we want to be negative about it, but realism is valuable, right? So what's next? Like, what are you working on now that either obviously you're going to take a break from Web3, but what are you working on now outside of Web3? What's keeping your creative juices flowing?
Well, a couple of projects actually, personal projects. I'm just going more into that, trying to like find my voice in like my passion again. So I think I'm working on a few fashion projects and then documentary projects that sort of infuse my style of photography into them. And just basically that.
Yeah, that's cool. I want to. So let's talk about your style of photography, because I'm curious. So, fashion photographer in Nigeria. When I think of Nigeria, I don't. I'm not from Nigeria, but when I think of Nigeria, I don't instantly think of fashion, right? When I think fashion, I think Los Angeles, New York, to some extent Chicago, maybe, but in Paris and London, I think those places are the stereotypical places that come to mind when we're talking fashion. Tell me about Nigerian fashion. And obviously, you can travel, so you're going to these places and shooting potentially, but inside Nigeria, what does the fashion scene look like inside the country?
Well, that's amazing because this personal collection, or rather this personal project I'm about to work on, is sort of just forcefully bringing back what it was. But what Nigeria is right now in the fashion space is we have amazing creatives. Actually, we have amazing fashion stylists. We have amazing people, really. But I haven't worked with many of these people. But it's more like we have like the influence of like a Western world in our like culture, and we tend to, well, we don't really tend to, but I intend to bring back the way wearing our own traditional outfits were before. That is normalizing that look and knowing that, okay, yeah, we can look celebratory in our everyday lives. So the Nigerian traditional fashion is just infused with lovely outfits, really, from different tribes of Nigeria, colorful, uh, buoyant, really, and really beautiful. And I intend to use that in this particular project I'm working on to just normalize that look in our everyday lives.
Yeah, and that seems important to me, right? Because just from the way I frame the question, right? When I think fashion, I think city A, B, C, and D. You're working to put another letter in there, right? So to put another, so that people can have a look into it. That's a big responsibility, right? To do that. If you're one of the few photographers that are shining a light on, hey, look at this, this is the way this tribe is, and their fashion has evolved over time, and this is where it is today versus this one, and how it sort of fits into the world idea of fashion. That's huge. And that's a project. That seems like a lifelong mission versus just a compartmentalized project, right? So that's just one project.
Yeah.
And how are you approaching that, right? So I would imagine there's lots and lots of tribes. I don't know how many, but there's a lot of tribes that you can sort of document with kind of what they're doing in the fashion world. Are you going in and just saying, hey, this is who I am and this is what I want to do, this is some of my work, can I shoot you, or different people in there, or do you already have connections? How does that work from an outside perspective? If I was to come, we talked about it before, me visiting Nigeria, if I was to just drop in there, I would have no idea what to do, where to go, where not to go, what's offensive, what's not offensive. I would just be a mess. I wouldn't know what to do there. How do you approach it as someone that's familiar with the culture and the ways to move around? How do you approach doing a shoot of this magnitude in country?
Okay, so for this particular shoot, how I would approach it is, I have someone working on it with me, an amazing creative as well, Sushi, but she's going to come in as a producer, so I think I'm going to throw most of my worries on her. But in this project, I think what we would approach in particular is security, because getting people is not hard. Getting outfits are not hard as well. Getting the environments, because we have beautiful picturesque environments, and we have like the components to make these photographs pop. We have the people, we have the outfits, we have the culture within us, so we know what will work. So it's just the security that will be the main focus, just to know that, okay, we're safe shooting this here, we're safe getting this particular footage here. So I think it wouldn't be hard, because we would most likely have people that can speak the languages of the places we're going to go to. And then we have our models interact with these people and we as well interact with these people so that they feel comfortable with us shooting there, and we try and get the essence of this place and put that into like the whole output.
Yeah, yeah. And then with those shoots, like we talked about before, the preparation for these shoots, what are they similar to the preparation for like a standard fashion shoot that you'd be doing? I.e., you're gonna, meet beforehand and build your mood board over here that you may or may not share with them, all the things. Are you doing that same kind of process, or does it differ when you're doing a project like this?
It doesn't really differ because there's going to be mood boards, there are going to be meetings, a lot of meetings. They're going to be really standard preparation like procedure, because we're not just doing a random pick up the camera and shoot a friend kind of like thing. It's more of we might travel to this particular place to get this particular shot, or we might need to hire security to get this. We might need to have 30 seconds of shoot time in this particular place because we need to run away from here. Or it's more of a really detailed like plan, because we're getting things that will stand out, things that we hope to run on magazines, things that will tell a story and put Nigeria like on a particular platform when it comes to like fashion. So yeah, it's not really different, because we are going to get to know each other. If we're going to be a team working on something as big as this, we're definitely going to spend time on meetings and preparation before like the shoots.
Yeah. What about safety? When I think of a shoot like this, obviously I'm thinking I'm from Chicago originally, right? So I'm just thinking, okay, if I was going to do a shot, I need to do this, I need to do that, I'm going to go over there. But very rarely, maybe some places in Chicago, but very rarely am I thinking about security, right? I'm not like, okay, I got to hire a security firm to do this and all that. What's the worst that could happen over there? Obviously, it's a naive question, but as a photographer, you're going on a shoot. What are you worried about people like taking your gear, or is it, are you loss of life? Like, what's the level of danger that you need security to safeguard you from?
Okay, so I'll just put you through the situation before even tagging myself as a photographer in it. So There's so much kidnapping going on in Nigeria, and then a lot of murder as well. Like a lot of, you don't even hear them on the news. It's normalized now. It's not even on the news. And then attacks, robberies. I think the least you would get is to get robbed without being hurt. And that's just the least. So you're now like a photographer holding expensive gear. You're basically putting the red target mark on your back, because you're now just, a normal citizen would go through the rest, and then you are putting the target mark on your back, standing out. So it's quite risky actually, even going to places. I shot last week at a place just under a bridge in the central area, but I was watching I had to get a bat, and then I was watching almost everywhere. The model was watching. We were very uncomfortable shooting there, but it had to happen because, like they say, risk just breeds, I don't know, good things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the security situation is really bad. There's a lot really going on in Nigeria. So it's a major issue because we consider it every time. And for a project like this, we would want to consider hiring security as well, like really good security, because it's not easy shooting randomly again in Nigeria.
Yeah, it seems like that'd be a supply and demand issue too. So, and what I mean by that is you are shooting in an area, just from what you just said makes me think, yeah, no way am I going to be able to go there and shoot, not with like a Nikon or a Lumix camera or something. If I go, I'm bringing that iPod or a phone or something like that, so I can kind of at least try to blend in and get some photos and get out of there without too much danger. But I'm thinking, like, what about the supply and demand piece comes in there with you? Everything you just said makes sense, right? You understand it. You understand the dangers and how to navigate that. I would say you're a minority in the world of photographers that understand how to negotiate in that environment, which makes your photographs even more special, right? Because you're able to get these photographs under duress in a situation where a lot of photographers would not even dare tread, right? So supply and demand means your photography is worth more than, a similar shot in some easy to access location. Do you capitalize on that? Like how does that work out? And if you're doing a job for a corporation or a client, do you work in the security fee as a line item? Like how does all that piece work?
That's a really good input. It's something that I plan on infusing in my invoices going forward, which is the security fee. Because even the police in Nigeria harass young people like myself, and it's really bad.
Oh, they do it here too. It's okay. Yeah, we get that too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I plan on infusing like a security fee in my invoices going forward, and I really don't capitalize on that. That's speaking outside the invoicing that I just spoke of. It's not like something I would add to the story of a photo, except it's really like it's needed to like explain how I shot that particular photo. But it's not something I would casually add because I'm not trying to use my situation as an advantage to get like maybe PT or get like sales, or try to just like strike up emotion when the actual purpose of me getting that shot was the love and the passion of fashion. So why not just share that particular story instead, rather than focusing on the process of getting it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I agree, but I disagree as well, because I agree. Yeah, what you're saying is the work should stand on itself, and you don't want people tainting the joy or the artistic value of this with some pity. Oh, he got this because whatever, or this is a mediocre shot, but it's amazing because he could have been killed getting it, right? Yeah. No, I get that, but at the same time, you work with the assets that are available to you. So you're in that situation. You can't, you're in the situation where you have to safeguard against these things. That it is what it is. It's the situation that you're presented with, and I would argue that the fact that you're still able to produce a caliber of work that rivals people that aren't presented with those constraints is a line item in the story. It's part of your personal story, right? I don't think it's pitiful or or anything. It is what it is, right? And you don't have to draw a circle on it and say, hey, pity me because I had to do this, whatever. It's more of, I'm a freaking amazing photographer and look at what I'm doing. By the way, I did this, with some AKs pointed at me from over there, right?
Exactly. That's a different approach entirely, actually. That's the way it would be done, not the drawing of a circle. Because some people like get misplaced and draw the circle around, and they're like, rather than describing the photo as this is a fashion photograph, they're going to be like, this is no, they're going to be like, I took this particular photo in this situation. This is the situation that this particular photo, which is a fashion photograph, was taken. They're not like, okay, this is a fashion photograph, and while working on this particular project, it was really like, these images mean a lot to me because this and this. They're more like, this is the situation and this was the product. So it's just basically that's just a different approach to it, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that's really interesting. And I guess the supply and demand piece of it comes in there, where not everyone can get those photos, right? And for a variety of reasons. And companies that are looking for the look that you're producing in that location, it's there's a limited resource of availability for that kind of work, and you're one of the few photographers that can do that. So that's the marketing guy in me coming out. Like, that's a resource that can't be easily copied and should be valued as such. right? So if it's some rare material or some rare mineral or something that's only available in that location, that thing's going to be valuable, right? Versus, just like your art. So I don't know. Yeah, all of that is really interesting to me. And the other piece of it, based on what you're saying, is, kind of coming back to the NFT side of things, is I can see how you wouldn't want to stand on the fact that you're in Nigeria and there are these constraints on top of you as an artist to get this work. Therefore, hey, please buy my work because, of these reasons. And who wants that, right? You want them to look at it and say, holy shit, this is an amazing shot. I need to have it. And then later read, wow, I didn't realize all this went down that went into this shot. You don't want it to be the reverse of that. Hey, wow, look at the story that he had to go through all this stuff to get this shot. Oh, and the shot's pretty good too, right? So, yeah. So, interesting. And you said I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about gear. So, all photographers care about that too, right? So, you mentioned you were shooting Canon. What does your loadout look like? In one of these shoots that you're going to, do you have the same kit the same camera, lenses, etc. that you bring on every shoot, or do you pick and choose what you're going to bring so that you're not bringing too much gear? How does that look when you get that bag ready to go out on a shoot to click the shutter?
Okay, so I've not reached the stage of having gear to pick. Whenever I upgrade my gear, at this moment where I am in my career, I can't really get two camera gears because I really don't need the second one. So I just try to get the best of one camera and then get like really good lenses or get like a really good lens. So my setup is just very simple, just a camera and its lens, and then maybe my drone and a reflector. Very simple. So it's just something I can put in like a knapsack and I go everywhere with it. Yeah, just basically that.
And these shots that we're looking at right now, just your camera, maybe a reflector, and your favorite lens with you, which I'm guessing, I think you mentioned was a 50? You're using a 50? Or what was the lens that you're shooting with primarily?
35.
35.
35 mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. Look at that. So for the folks that are listening to the podcast, I'm just showing some of the images. I'll have the link to the page that you can go view these on, and to the other resources in the blog post for this, and also in the description of the YouTube video. So just look down there and you'll link right over to stuff. Let's wrap it up with just sort of like parting thoughts of inspiration for photographers that are looking to do this quality or this caliber of work. From wherever they are, how should they get started if they're sort of new to the craft and just sort of feeling their way around, kind of like you were when you were at school shooting with the iPod, right? If they're kind of in that level, how do they go from where they are now to getting close to where you are, or at least pointing in that direction?
Okay, so how I would approach it and how I would advise they approach it is to make YouTube their friend. There's a lot of inspiration, and quite frankly, you come across videos that make you wish you could reach that level, and then you see yourself walking towards it. So YouTube is like the first tool I would really advise any of them to go through. And then I would also advise, I'm talking to them right now, so I wouldn't speak in like that term. So I would advise you to go through YouTube and just like get your niche, get your passion, get yourself fueled basically on YouTube, and also try and master post-processing, because you find yourself shooting with gear that you don't like, or you find yourself shooting at really not convenient situations. And at the end of the day, when you plug in these images to your phone or your laptop, you find that you're not scared of the outcome because you know what you can do while editing these photos. So try and master your post-processing skills and believe in yourself, believe in growth. It's a patient, it's a thing. It's just like every success story, really. It can be slow at times, it can be fast, but just don't rush yourself. Don't try and go out of the way to push your success through not good ways. I don't know if you get me, but like, yeah, just try and go through with it. Get your passion, be consistent, shoot, just get out there and shoot as much as you can, because the more you shoot, the more you get acquainted with the camera you're using, the more you become more conscious of composition, lighting, and the situations you even want to be shooting at. Like, you would know these things when you shoot more often. So just be consistent with that, and you will see yourself really go out there and get that.
That's good. And then your suggestions for if somebody, they want to do that, they want to shoot more, but then they're like, oh man, look at these models Ebuka's shooting. How do I get models to do that? I want to be a fashion and portrait photographer, but maybe I'm shy. I don't know where to go. How do I do that? What's your suggestion for that?
Okay, so at school, the people I started out with, and I'm glad to know and say that our experience together has trained them into becoming professional models. I started out with regular friends. I don't know if the word regular is good in front of my friends, but yeah, I started out with friends. And I started with my roommates at school, people that didn't know jack about modeling. And I'm just like, yo, please, I want you to model for me. And they're like, yeah, calm, just tell me what to do. And we figure it out together. Because we're friends, I figure out how to tell them to pose. I'm like, yeah, I like that. Or, you know how to bend, you know how to do this, you know how to wave your hands. And then we laugh about it, but we're growing together. And the next time we go for a shoot again with my friends, they know what to do. And then you find yourself being comfortable, focusing on just your camera, because you have friends that will be there to test out things with you. So you're growing regularly with your friends. So just start with your friends, start with people you can access, your siblings. Start with you can start with anyone around you that is a friend, that you consider a friend. You don't need to get a model per se, a professional model, because you wouldn't want to test out your stuff on a professional model, because she might or he might require you to pay, or they wouldn't really feel you or want to shoot again with you when they see that you're just testing your skills with them. So just try it with friends, grow with friends. Friends will always motivate you when you post their pictures, because they're like, yeah, this is me. And then you feel confident. So it's just the thing, you start with your friends or start with people around you.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect. Yeah. And yourself too, right? Self-portraiture. You could, put your camera on a tripod. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You mentioned during the interview, you mentioned that you had a Skillshare course out there. I'm curious because I want to take that course. Can you tell me about it? What's the deal with the course?
Okay, so I have two Skillshare courses actually. The first one is more on, like, the target audience is for the photographers who start out with low budget gear. It's just like trying to show you that there are no restrictions. The first one is professional photography on a budget, editing techniques in Adobe, Photoshop, and Lightroom. So it's just a mixture of showing you how to make your photos stand out regardless, like, the gear you're using. And then the second one is for portrait photography, where I teach the photographer's guide to capturing mood and emotion. So the second one is more detailed on getting those really good portrait photographs that you really want to get. So yeah, it runs you through the startup process, the planning process, the getting a mood board, getting to know your subject, shooting self-portraits as well, and the editing phase as well. So yeah, it's just a detailed course on portrait photography in particular, while the first is just getting you confident enough to shoot with whatever gear you have, knowing that you have your post-processing skills to back you up.
Love that. Yeah, make sure you share with me the links to those, and I'll put those in the YouTube video description and in the show notes for this episode. Perfect. Sure, perfect. Yeah. I guess my last question for you is kind of back to the world of NFTs and from a collector's perspective. So, like, you have work in the light collection. What's the one thing, if there's an artist, or not an artist, but a collector looking at your work, right? And they're like, looking at this gallery, this body of work, and they find one that speaks to them, or they find a group of them that speaks of your work that speaks to them. what would you want them to have in mind about you as the artist that created that piece? Like what thing do you want them to, when they look at it, they instantly feel a connection to you? What's that connective tissue, do you think?
I would want them to know that I'm a person just like them, but like I'm a person who wants to create images that strike up emotion, that is, strike up action basically, or provoke action or a reaction. So I'm just striving to share my view with the world and share like different moods and things you can get from a moment, not just from plainly looking at it, but like you can conceive various definitions just from looking at one image. And I'm someone working hard and really trying my best to make something out of my hands, really to define myself, to find my purpose in the world of art and the world of photography. And I think that should count for something. I think that should.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I know one company that has a mission statement of making the world a better place through the power of photography. Right. So that's kind of their general overarching mission statement. It sounds very similar to what you're doing, right? Making, communicating these ideas, being provocative and stoking certain emotions using your photography. And when people look at the work, I'm looking at the work now, I can see it. I can see exactly what you're thinking. And now that I've had this conversation with you, I look at the work differently, right? As I look at it, oh, okay, this is interesting how he's shooting this and how he's concepted this particular shot. I can imagine the pre-conversations that you've had with some of the models that you've shot, that all sort of comes together. So cool, man. Congratulations on everything you're working on, the Skillshare courses, being in the light drop, and a body of work that is already freaking amazing. So congratulations on everything. So, and this upcoming project, please keep me posted on this project, the project with going to the different tribes. I would love to touch base with you, as it progresses, not necessarily after, but definitely, but as it's progressing as well, to see how things are going. And, is it unfolding the way that you thought it would? That'd be great to find out.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, Ebuka, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you, and best of luck with everything going forward.